Our X-Files. Welcome to our X-Files Vault. Regular people talking about unexplained phenomena. UFOs. Ghosts. Cryptids. Hidden archaeology. Weird science. Our stories. Our takes. Our X-Files Vault.
Hey, good evening. Welcome to another episode with Scariest Creeotastics with he's Scott Campbell. I'm Cameron Wilson, and we're going to get you right into it. How you doing today, Scott?
I'm good. I got quite the story or quite the episode today. But I want you to start us off, Cam. What do you got for us?
Sure. I'll get right to it. I'm actually going to do a little bit. I normally like to do a lot of, because we're from New England, we do a lot of New England folklore. We do a lot of stuff outside New England, like when you talk about the Manu and other events around the world. We have done that. So I'm actually going to bring this one back to, I'm actually going to go to Latin America, into DR, and I'm going to talk about, so you've heard of mermaids, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and eventually I'll probably do a segment on that, or you may if you want to do it before I do. But the creature I'm going to do has a lot of similarities to mermaids, except that they're on land, and I'll really get more into that. The creature I'm doing is a Ciquaqua. They've been talked about for at least over a century in DR, Dominican Republic. It's part of their mythology. It's really they're a humanoid-ish looking creature, entity, type of spirit. They're always comparison to mermaids. They're described as, like I said before, having human forms, mostly being a female. However, there have been males Ciquaquas before, but primarily most of them are females. They typically look about with brown or dark blue skin. Sometimes they may be black. They have also slanted black eyes. They're typically known to be, they have two forms. Typically, they're known to be very beautiful, lusting, majestic, and it's pretty interesting. And one of the things of how I said they're kind of similar to mermaids, one, the beautiful aspect. Two, the one thing about Ciquaquas is their feet are actually facing backwards, meaning like from you take the knee pretty much from their feet, and their like calf muscles are facing forward and their feet are backwards. Ironically, they're actually really fast. They're able to glide. They're able to, give me one second, I gotta shut this door real quick. Give me 1 second, Scott. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. Just didn't want any intruders coming in or any ghosts, because I have my protection stones up. But as I was saying about the Ciquaquas, like I said, they're very fast. They're very agile. They're very quick. They're very elusive. Mystical beings, which is very ironic that they're that fast given the way how their feet are. And there have been other creatures around the world that have similar type of features. But to go back to a little bit about them, they're also known to be very beautiful. Like I said, they're known to be shy. They're known to be cruel. And depending on who you ask, some people say that, they're just really shy, scared beings. Other people will say that they're very frightening, terrifying things. They're believed to live in mountaintops in DR, as well as caves, woodlands, dens, and for the most part, they like to come out. They're strongest normally the eve before the night of a full moon, when they normally come out. They're known to seek out lonely people or people that are intrigued by them. And what they do is they tend to lure people that are interested in them into the woods, where they make passionate love, intimate kisses them or whatever. And while they're doing that, they're sucking the life and breath out of you, eventually killing you. And a lot of times too, they're known just to harvest the body and everything else. So it's kind of like almost like I'm pretty sure the poison ivy character from Batman is kind of based off of this to some degree, where she's beautiful, but her kisses are poisonous. It is pretty crazy. And there have been some people that said you don't really want to follow these things. Some people say you can't capture them. Some people say that you can. Some people say that if you do capture one, it will die in your captivity, but you may also die with it too, because Siguaguas are also known to, a lot of times, you see it more with the men ones, but a lot of times if they see a person or something that they like or want, they'll try to either form a bond with that being or thing, and then they will possibly die, and then you could die with it as well. Children are known, these things are known from a young age. Children are told to stay away from these things, don't go looking for them, don't go in the woods, because a lot of times, like I said, when they seek out somebody or that's lost in the woods, they'll make like a humming or a singing or a hollow sound. They don't speak, but they sound beautiful, almost like a mermaid would lure somebody at sea, or a lost sailor, you know. However, when someone finds one in the woods, even with their backwards looking feet facing the other way, they are able to leave weird tracks. Then people, like I said, their unsuspecting prey will just follow them into the woods, which which is pretty crazy. Another thing about these Siguaguas is when they're really sad, that, like I said, they're known for singing. Typically when they cry, whatever area where they cried is still wet, like the following day, as if like a torrential downpour went through there. People that claim to survive being around these mystical beings, they claim that the aftermath around them and everything else is almost like a dead still. Like if there was birds, insects, water, or anything, or air, like everything just stops, as if they almost have control, or they frighten the atmosphere and anything else along that. So it's pretty interesting. They're also known to like to steal meat, and they're known to mess with horses and brave their tails at night. And like I said, they're more active at night. These things are more nocturnal. The really strongest during the full moon. And yeah, there's definitely things interesting. There's been a couple of movies that feature them. They're commonly always compared to mermaids, like I said, given the fact that they're beautiful, they're on land, their lower bodies, extremities are kind of different, like, you know, with their feet facing backwards, just how like mermaids don't have legs, that long thing. And it's the origin of them is very interesting, because people have been talking about them for 100 years. Some people claim that the native tribes of Latin America actually had similar myths about these things, but a lot of people and a lot of historians will say that, given the fact that their familiarity is more with mermaids or common characteristics, that they think that a lot of it just came over. It happens to be a legend that merged with European settlers coming here, in terms of just, you know, merging together. So some people say that like the natives have been talking about them for years, but a lot of people say that they didn't arrive from the native culture of the Dominican Republic, even though that there are some people, and people will say that some people believe that they derive from a smaller race of human beings, because a lot of these things are believed to be no bigger than 1 meter. Not quite midgets, not quite dwarfs, but yeah, and it's very interesting, like I said. And if you apparently, for something that's shy, skittish, like I said, they seem to kind of be that thing where they're cute but they're destructive. Like, you know, it's very interesting, very, very interesting being. I'm glad I got to sort of talk about something outside New England, even though we've done that before, but kind of want to give a little love to our Latin American culture.
Yeah,
But
that's an interesting. When you was mentioning the singing, that's kind of like the siren.
yep, they're compared to that too. That was mentioned a little bit, because like I said, these things don't speak supposedly, and
I'd like to look that up and know a little bit more about that. But yeah, that's cool.
yeah, it's very weird, because when I was kind of deep diving, you can find there's some places where it's the information about them is very scarce and basic, and then others will other sites I've come across will have like long drawn out things and just, you know, like it's definitely a rabbit hole to go down worth talking about and very interesting.
Hmm.
So what do you got for us again?
Well, I'm doing Close Encounters. Now, there are 5 of them. And, there's for years and years and years, there used to only be 3. Up until about, I'm going to say, the 1960s, there's 3 of them. And probably within the last 40, 50 years, they added 2 more, which is the 4th kind and the 5th kind. The last 2 are the most terrifying, obviously. I'll get into what each one does, and, you know, I'll get into the details. But the 4th kind is an abduction. Now, that, of course, that's terrifying. I mean, that to me is probably the most scary of all of them. The 5th kind is like you can mind read with an alien. I don't particularly know why that's the 5th kind, because like maybe that should have been the 4th kind, and that because you think abduction would be probably that's just so horrific. I couldn't imagine. But let me get into all of them, and then we can go from there.
Please do.
Now, the 1st kind it's a visual sighting of a UFO. So that's when you see something less than 500 feet away. So, for instance, if you see a disc or something that looks like a UFO, that's a close encounter of the 1st kind.
Also, that's probably the most common one, obviously, too.
Right? That's one of the ones that most people get pictures and videos and just sightings in general. Close encounter of the 2nd kind, it's when physical effect is alleged. So, for instance, what that is that's like you're in a car and you're driving along and your radio stops, or your cell phone shuts off and it has no power, or your lights go crazy in your building, or you feel effects like paralysis or heat and discomfort, something like that. That's a close encounter of the 2nd kind. Close encounter of the 3rd kind that's when you see an alien itself. It could be a gray, could be some sort of a humanoid, a robot form, some sort of an occupant of a UFO. That's a close encounter of the 3rd kind. Now, there was a scientist back in the 1960s. His name was Dr. Hynek. If you've ever seen the show, I wish I knew the name of the show, but anyways, he was hired by the FBI to study UFOs and the sightings, and he worked for a project called Project Blue Book, and he studied all these different sightings up until, I don't know, probably the 1970s or something. And what he was doing was all the sightings, he would go out and examine them all. And there were so many that he could explain, but there were some that he couldn't. And at the time, he only came out with the 3, the 1st kind, the 2nd kind, and the 3rd kind. UFO abductions weren't really that much of a thing back in the 1960s and 70s. So, and they call it the Hynek scale, which is classification for UFO sightings. So, the guy that worked with J. Allen Hynek was a guy called His name was what was his name here? I'm trying to get his name. Just give me 1 second here. I'm trying to look up his name.
Good time.
Dang, what was his name? I had it on the tip of my tongue and now I can't find it. But the movie, he was a French UFO researcher, and the book, not the book, the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Oh, was it Close Encounters of the First Kind? What was the movie with Richard Dreyfuss? Was that the Third Kind? Yeah, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The French UFO researcher in that movie was actually based on this guy, who worked with J. Allen Hynek.
That's pretty cool.
So this guy is still alive today, and he's still researching UFOs today, and he's a big deal. He's one of those guys who saw a lot of classified files. He saw a lot of top secret things in the Pentagon, a lot of top secret government files that nobody else ever saw in his time working with J. Allen Hynek and on Project Blue Book. And, it's an interesting thing because when you have a close encounter, it's hard to let anybody know which one you had, because obviously if you have the worst of them all, like I mentioned before, was the fourth kind.
Being abducted.
Who wants to tell anybody they were abducted by aliens? I mean, that's a terrifying thing on its own. I mean, the third kind, of course, is going to be terrifying. You see an alien, you see a UFO with an alien in it, of course it's going to be terrifying. Imagine being abducted and then having to go through that, and then, having to tell somebody about that. So the fifth kind, they say it's just like a telepathy type of thing where you can, I'm trying to see here. Okay, right here, fifth kind, where it says, is a UFO event claiming direct communication between aliens and humans. That's the fifth kind. Now, I've never really heard too many cases of that in all the UFO research that I've been doing. So it's probably a lot rarer than the abduction theory, but I think that it's, of all that I've seen, and there's a lot of stuff on, if you go to Discovery Plus, which is a great channel, go to Discovery Plus and look under paranormal. There's a ton of UFO stuff, and they interview some of these people in government. They interview that guy that I was telling you about who worked with J. Allen Hynek. There's a ton of programs. They're phenomenal programs. They talk with senators. They talk with ex-military officials. And if you don't believe these people, then obviously, you have to believe these people. Because they're senators, ex-senators, ex-congressmen.
A lot of people don't trust politicians. We do live in a weird. No, I get what you're saying. I
totally agree. Military officials too. I mean, who would not believe a 3-star general or a colonel?
Fox News broadcasters.
Yeah, I just find it kind of hard to not believe someone in the military who has so much to lose by coming forward with a fake story. I mean, so
no, you're right. Yeah, you're totally right about that.
That's it. I mean, that's Close Encounters. They've been going on probably for hundreds, maybe thousands of years. As some people know, that if you look at some of the paintings go back to the Renaissance, when you see pictures of even pictures of the Virgin Mary holding baby Jesus, you look up behind and you see this weird thing in the sky. It could be the sun, but a lot of people say that looks like a UFO. So who knows? It could have been thousands of years. Even the ancient Egyptians have stuff on their walls that look like aliens. Who knows? But
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. Because even I forget what country. I think it's Argentina or Peru, one of them, and it's on like one of their indigenous sites for indigenous people, and if that it was like a doll or not a toy, but like a doll of a humanoid person, and this thing was probably made about 1,200 years ago. Not 12,
wow.
made in the 1200s, like right around the time the ancient Mayans died. But if you looked at this toy now, you would be like, oh, that's a guy wearing a submarine costume going underwater. But when this toy, not this toy, but when this doll or this figure that was discovered by what's Indiana Jones? Not architect,
Archaeologist.
Yeah, archaeologist. And I think it was a geologist that found it too, somebody was studying Earth. But yeah, like the site they found that was believed to be not have been touched for over, I want to say like 1,100 years or so. When they find something that looks like a guy wearing a submarine costume, and then so I do think when I was younger, I didn't really believe in UFOs so much, but in your regards to talk about these politicians, senators, aldermen, elected officials, 3-star generals. My dad was in the military, and I think he actually had an experience while he was on duty because he's very big in the UFO, like researching, hunting. He's always talking about aliens. He's always into it. Another mentor of mine, my friend Mark, he's an engineer. This guy can literally take apart your car and put it back together within an hour. He believes in UFOs and talks about it to me all the time. Wyndham, New Hampshire, which is kind of close to you and I, a nice bedroom wealthy community. I know this guy that was a Blue Angels in Wyndham, New Hampshire. He actually went on Chronicle and talked about how he twice saw a UFO while he was active with the Air Force. And then the first time he reported one, I think it was in the 98 is when he reported his first like encounter, or he was up in the sky with a UFO. And he kept going on the radio, talking about it, asking about it. And then he was like, when I land, I was sure someone was going to come up to me, talk to me, give me a psych evaluation or something. But he's like, yeah, no. And we talked about it a couple times, and that was it. So, it's weird because
I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, it was weird because like I worked in law enforcement. And I want to say, I think I got into law enforcement at a time when cops, military people were more open to talking about paranormal things, whether it's aliens, magic, ghosts, haunted, or animals. Where I think 10 years prior, they probably would have put you in a mental institution. We were talking about those things, so it's kind of good to see that we're evolving, we're opening up our minds to the possibility of these things. So yeah, no, it's definitely very humans are
and
evolving.
When it comes from credible sources, and I've said this, I think, on a previous broadcast, that some of the greatest people in history, like Eisenhower during World War II, saw something come out of the water and take off straight in the air.
Yeah, remember that.
Reagan on 2 separate occasions. Once when he was president and once before he was president. These are credible. Why would these people lie about something like that? And these are the most credible people you can imagine. So, I think there is if you get a chance to go on the Discovery Plus. I don't know if you have the app or not, but phenomenal. Go to Paranormal under Discovery Plus and watch. There's one particular program called The Phenomenon. Oh man,
Heard of it, yeah.
It is so
I've been mostly watching
amazing.
Paranormal Camera.
Oh, you were?
You
have Discovery?
Yeah, actually, no, that's Discovery owns Travel Channel, or Travel Channel owns Discovery, vice versa. But Travel Channel has a lot of like Paranormal Camera or Caught on Paranormal Camera.
Oh,
they actually have a lot of like
Paranormal Caught on Camera, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely like I don't know, like yeah, they have some cool, like some really convincing UFO stuff on there. There was one of I mentioned to my friend Nick, who does used to do like that paranormal show with me. There is a Paranormal Camera. They had this one episode, and this looks legitimately has to be real. This guy was in Italy walking in the woods. He had an iPhone because this thing is crystal clear when it comes out. And he was probably at least, I want to say, I don't know, like, I don't know how high above him it was. It was probably at least like 200. I don't know how close, like the closest probably a plane could be to a ground, just flying and coasting. And it was two Air Force jets flying, and behind it was an oval looking UFO structure. And it looked legitimately real. And I don't want to say this guy was like 100 feet away from it, but it looked like this guy was like underneath it when they were flying past him. It looked like if you got somebody, like, not to get into football talk, but if you got somebody like Josh Allen, he would probably, if he threw the football going up straight, he probably would have hit the thing. Like, that's how close it looked like it was flying over him. Wow. It wasn't a fuzzy evidence. Like, you can make out, like, if you put a flag of any country or you painted something like colors on that UFO, you'd be able to make out what it was on it based on how close this guy was. Like, he's walking in the woods, things flying above him, and he films it. So it's two Italian Air Force planes, and then behind it's this UFO being like escorted, and it's definitely, it goes to show you that one, there's probably a lot going on out there they're not telling us, which, you know, people always say, and, you know, there's reasons for conspiracies. Because I'll put it this way: if a UFO landed in Russia or China, we're less likely to hear about it as opposed to it landing in Australia, Southern Canada, or US.
Oh yeah.
Like,
yeah, you know, this program that I was telling you about delves into that too. It delves into other countries, especially the Soviet Union, and they talk about some of the commanding generals for the Soviet Union and how they had sightings in the past. But what's most scary is some of the nuclear warhead facilities that we have in the US, how they were talking about how these soldiers were stationed there, and how these nuclear missile silos had launch codes that were set off just out of the blue, but they saw a blip on their radar, and the launch codes were set, and no one set them. And then the next thing you know, the blip is gone and the launch codes are deactivated.
Yeah, my dad was really big into that too, and references that all the time. And to a degree, like, I know for people saying oh, if aliens are real, we'd have a bunch of them by now, blah blah blah. I think when you look at human history and how far we come in terms of things that are different or believed to be magical or perceived, mankind hasn't really acted too well to it. And I don't really want to go into the Salem witchcraft trial, but, like, obviously, like, in terms of extraterrestrial beings coming to Earth, they'd have to some way be more advanced than us. For one, to be so elusive for us not to see them as much as we do, and two, the fact that they're able to get here, travel through space. We haven't even been back to the moon yet. So, or at least beyond the moon. So, obviously, whatever aliens are here now, or then, or in the past, or whenever they got here, or whatever type of alien, they've obviously been observing us, watching us for a while. And I mean, if I was one, I wouldn't be so eager to introduce myself to a human being, because they see the way how we treat our own people who are different. And like I said, I don't mean to go back to the Salem witchcraft trial, but to you and me, it's a long time ago. But in terms of time and space, 400 years is really not that much of a time frame in terms of, and, you know, depending on how these extraterrestrial beings might view it as. Because a lot of the incidences that happened in the Salem witchcraft trial, in terms of the reckoning and the paranormal, that's kind of stuff still sort of happens today to a degree. Yeah, we have a justice system and we're more civilized in certain countries to a degree, but at the same time, mankind as a race is probably be viewed as a disappointment to an extraterrestrial being that's coming here. You know, they see it, we're destroying our world, we're at war with each other, putting each other down, we're always politicized and stuff. So because, like, one of my friends, he's a skeptic scientist, brilliant kid, but he tries to tell me, like, oh, aliens aren't real, this or that. we would have had one by now. But I'm like, not necessarily. Like,
And
if I was a smart
who's to,
enough being, I wouldn't.
who's
Oh,
to
sorry.
say we don't? No, I'm sorry. Who's to say we don't either
Don't what?
have any? I
Oh no,
mean,
I think we do. I think we do. But
I mean, look at our technology in the last 40 years, how it's become so goddamn advanced, and yet we can't even, we can't, like you said, get back to the moon, but yet we can. We got cell phones that can basically do everything for you. We got TVs that you can get apps, you can do this, you can do. I mean, look at the technology, cars that can drive themselves. I mean, we got technology up the kazoo, but yet we haven't been back to the moon. So this reverse technology, where did it come from that fast? But yet it took 400 years for other things to happen, So who knows? Maybe we do.
Another topic I want to do for another episode on the Middle Earth theory. Admiral Byrd. I don't know if you ever heard of the Hollow Earth theory.
Yep.
Okay, so good. I'll probably do a whole segment on that, or we could do a 2-part episode because I know so much about the Hollow Earth theory. However, but I'm assuming you heard of Admiral Reed or Admiral Byrd.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So supposedly he was flying around over the North Atlantic, and his plane got. I read not his journal, but I read like his journal was like released on YouTube, where his enterings where he was talking about what happened, and recordings, and like he flew to the middle of Earth, went to the center of the Earth, saw the Emperor. The Emperor was very worried about the atomic bomb being made by Einstein and everything else, and he said that he was giving mankind a warning, or a grave warning, and that was about into World War II. So, but yeah, and he was an admiral. He talked about it. He talked about how he went to the middle of the Earth, and one thing that's tied to the Hollow Earth theory is aliens.
Oh,
so an admiral, and we were going back about how elected officials were talking about this stuff. Admiral Byrd was talking about this stuff back in the 50s and 60s, where he was adamant that he saw beings bigger than us in the middle of the center of the Earth, this
really?
and that. And then, oh yeah. Then people for a while told him.
And he was an admiral?
Yeah, oh yeah, he was an admiral. And that's like, higher than a general. So
Wow.
yeah, like we could probably, like I said, he was doing it at a time when everybody thought it was crazy. Because the first UFO sighting was what, Bert or whatever, those people from like Londonderry, New Hampshire, back in the 50s, like the first reported UFO.
Betty and Bonnie Hill, yeah.
Yeah, and they're like out of Londonderry, and that was after Admiral Byrd went to center of the Earth, talked to the Emperor, went on, and the Emperor expressed about mankind's advancement with the atomic bomb, because at the time, they were on the brink, World War II, on the brink of crazy times back then. And obviously, who knows, that might be a reoccurring thing happening now with tensions high with Russia possibly invading Ukraine, China talking about Taiwan, what's US going to do, or NATO. And so I don't think we're on the verge of World War III, even though Putin wants to make it feel like it's like that. But when I say Putin, I mean Vladimir Putin, the prime minister, the dictator of Russia, not the prime minister.
I think next week I want to do and then we'll go to football after this. I think next week I want to do either two things. I'm either going to do Aleister Crowley. You know who he was?
No,
he was quite the character. There's supposedly the reason for the Loch Ness Monster could be because of Aleister Crowley.
Oh, really?
He was huge into Satanism, but he wanted to start his own religion back in, I'm going to say, early 1900s. And he moved to Scotland because he was banned from England. And he wanted to, because he was such a crazy nut. And he wanted to, I don't want to spoil the whole thing, but look him up and the guy was a nutcase. But he wanted to start his own religion, but they think that the Loch Ness Monster might have been, when he was summoning a demon, you have to finish the spell completely. And they think that might have been, because his house is right where Loch Ness is, the house that he owned back in the 1900s.
Oh wow, I never even really. That's interesting because I mean, I do follow a lot about the Loch Ness monster only because of obviously the Champ in our earlier episodes, and I'm used to going up to Lake Champlain, and Champ does predate the Loch Ness monster, even though the Loch Ness monster is more world renowned. But of course, being in England, but no, I can't wait to learn more all about him next.
So it's
for
either
our next
Aleister
episode.
Crowley or it's going to be yeah, probably Aleister Crowley. He was quite the character. Like I said, he's an interesting guy. I don't, not something that I idolize by any means, but he was a guy who wanted to make his own religion, and a lot of it had to do with sex, and a lot of it had to do with being away from God and using your own
That's called a cult when you normally start doing those
a
things.
cult, but he calls it a religion. And there's
Oh
still
yeah.
people,
Oh no. All cults call themselves religion.
well, there's
But
still people today who go by it. So, but yeah, you'll find out more about it. So I think I'm gonna do that next week. But whenever you're ready, we can get into football, man.
all right. So yeah, right now we're in the thick of the playoffs. The divisional games are coming up this week. If you've been listening to us if you've been listening to us for a while, you know that Scott and I are Patriots fans, and part of that is because of the region that we live in, and 20-year dominance.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we'll do a quick recap. Unfortunately, the Pats lost in a horrible. That was probably their worst playoff loss, at least. That was probably worse than that was a bigger beatdown than the Super Bowl beatdown that they had from the Bears from the '85 Bears. So
that was a worse beatdown than the Eagles against Tampa Bay Bucks last week, and that was a pretty one-sided victory. Tampa Bay just kind of put them to shame, but oh man, that was horrible to watch.
You're right. Yeah, because I mean, it's one thing to get beat by a more talented team or divisional opponent. Third game, I picked the Pats to win because I'm a Patriots fan, and I understand they have a rookie QB. Mac Jones does have limitations because one, he doesn't have Kendrick Bourne is a good receiver. He's probably the best receiver we have, but they need to get somebody like Steph Diggs, like a legit top 5 playmaker. And I don't think Belichick wants one. He could have put a bid in for OBJ.
I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know why he doesn't. And the funny thing is he could have gotten Emmanuel Sanders, a couple of years ago, I believe. He could have, and that's actually part of what I'm going to be talking about. I'm sorry, I'm going to be talking about in a few minutes is where I think they're going next year. I just think it's going to be a total breakdown of maybe not so much of the players, but their defense definitely let us down.
Well, the linebackers rolled. Judon's still good, but he was definitely either hurt or was dealing with something because for the first 12 games of the season, the guy was lights out, had a motor that wouldn't quit. The last 4 or 5 games, he's out there, but he doesn't look, he's kind of looks like a shell of himself. Definitely high tower. So he's a free agent. So you definitely need new linebackers. Kyle Illinois would probably come back, but he's getting old in the tooth too, but he's doing a little bit more, than Hightower, because Hightower kind of overplays the run a little bit more now than he used to. McCourty, he's getting up there in age, but I still think he has a solid year left in him, and you might need to because Belichick doesn't like paying corners. You're gonna have to pay J.C. Jackson because Miles Bryant or whatever. I mean, Jalen Mills or Jalen the Green Goblin, he actually was kind of decent. Got picked on a little bit, but Miles Bryant, I don't know. He should be a special teams player at best, or maybe like a slot corner. He shouldn't be covering a number 1 or even a number 2 on any team. And unfortunately, because of Jalen Mills being out this past game in the first round, it bumped him up to number 2. And it really is kind of the effect of not having Gilmore. But who knows if Gilmore would have been able to go because he got hurt in Carolina, and they brought him along solely so he wouldn't get hurt. But you're right. That defense is going to have to be redone because offensively they can't really do too much. I mean, you got a rookie QB, you got to let him grow. You got running back. Shane White's going to be back. That's good. Kendrick Bourne's back. They got to find a way to get either Juju Smith and Jonnu Smith into the game because he definitely underperformed. I think he only had 300 yards receiving the whole year or something. And he's like the most athletic guy on offense. He's probably the most explosive in terms of straight line speed. So, the O-line's probably always going to be there. I mean, Ted Karras wants to come back, and I like Ted Karras.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know if Trent Brown's coming back because he's big, he's a massive human being, but obviously they got to invest in protecting Mac Jones. They got to get him. They do need to get him a quick or speedy wide receiver or somebody that can run slots.
Yeah,
because you can only do so much on I don't think they're going to be able to do more than that. Maybe one or two pieces on offense. Defense, though, like I said, they're going to have to find. They're going to have to not gut it, but you definitely need at least 3 new lines.
Uh-oh, what happened?
The coaching is really not all there because for Belichick to spend the most amount of money on special teams, we had the most amount of special teams penalties, or at least close to it. He had 3 block punts for touchdown return from the opposing team. That's historically bad in one season.
Yeah. Here's another thing too. The defense totally blew this game. Terrible defense.
They gave up 7 straight scoring drives. They couldn't even stop them. They scored the first.
Here's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if Belichick's going to be back. That's one thing I'm wondering because you never know when he's going to retire. That's one question.
I think Belichick's going to not announce it. He's so secretive and private. He doesn't, he's secretive and private about everything.
Well, because here's the thing. Everybody was talking about Josh McDaniels possibly leaving, but I don't think so because he could be our next coach.
I would actually rather have him than Matt Patricia because there's a lot of rumors that Matt Patricia might be back in the fold and blah blah blah. And I gotta say, Matt Patricia, if you remember his last 2 games coaching New England, they really weren't all that good. We almost lost. His defense almost lost that Blake Bortles Jacksonville defense in the AFC Championship game that year. The year we lost to Philadelphia. And the thing is he gave up almost 40 points to a Nick Foles offense, in the Super Bowl. We're talking about how great of a defensive guy this guy is. Because Brady did all he could to win that game. That was the most amount of passing yards in Super Bowl history. It was 538 or something by Tom Brady in a losing effort. Tom Brady couldn't have done it. I know he had that strip sack at the end, but still, and that was still a 1-score game. But I'm trying to hear about how smart Matt Patricia is because after he gave up those massive amount of points in the Super Bowl, then he takes over a playoff team in Detroit because they went to the playoffs that year. And not only did he take a playoff team, they got worse every year under him. So, and now he's back here. People say oh, well, Belichick, he wasn't all that great in Cleveland. And initially he wasn't great in Cleveland at first, but his last year there, he led them to a playoff win. Yeah. So, I don't want to hear that's the horrible comparison to compare Matt Patricia. So I know Josh McDaniels has issues too, but
I think it could be Josh McDaniels, and only because he didn't take the job with if you remember, he stayed on instead of going to
the Colts.
And maybe he was under the agreement that, I'll stay along because I know Bill's only going to be on for a couple more years. And he's got a good thing going. Andy's one of the highest paid He
He is
is
the highest paid.
the highest paid offensive coordinator. Why go anywhere and have a chance of being fired again if your team sucks? I mean,
Oh, you're right. Look at Brian Flores. The first time Miami Dolphins had back-to-back winning seasons in 20 years, and they fire him.
And they didn't have that bad a year this year.
They had a winning record. They doubled it. So back-to-back winning years. That's the first time they had back-to-back winning seasons since Dan Marino left.
Yep. And I just think they're going to lose a lot of people. I think, the defense needs to be, and I think Belichick needs to focus heavily on offense this year. I know he did last year, but, and if I were Bob Kraft, I would go in there and I would say, Bill, you got to get some wide receivers in here. You got to get some of those big guys, big name wide receivers in here. Bob Kraft's got to put his foot down and say, it's time, because we can't keep going like this with guys like Nelson Aguilar who sucks. I mean,
I don't know if Nelson Aguilar doesn't suck, but it's just that Belichick overvalued him. I never thought Nelson Aguilar was worth $11 million a year. If anything, Kendrick Bourne should be getting $11 million a year.
Yeah,
Nelson Aguilar should be getting the Julian. I don't want to say it's weird. Julian Edelman is probably, other than Wes Welker did a lot for this franchise too. Troy Brown. It is weird that Nelson Aguilar is I know times are different, but the highest paid receiver that Belichick breaks the bank for, Nelson Aguilar, he had one good year, and that was on a prove-it deal with Oakland, which and not to mention when Belichick offered him that $11 million, there was other guys on the board like Juju Smith-Schuster from Pittsburgh, Emmanuel Sanders. You can go on and on. But
a couple of years ago, we could have gotten I don't know if it was last year or before he went to Buffalo. We were in on Stephon. We could have gotten Stephon Diggs.
Oh yeah, I know. What did he go for a first?
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but look at him. Look the moment he's definitely a game changer. It's like when we had Gronk. When years when we had Gronk and Gronk's on the field, it was just a mismatch for anybody.
Yeah.
When Gronk's off the field, we need. I don't want to say we need someone like that, but it's sometimes I feel like Belichick doesn't even want that. This guy had the greatest quarterback and tight end of all times, and doesn't really seem appreciative of it. I think Gronk's definitely a top tight end, or at least
we need it. We need it because we have a rookie quarterback now. We don't have a Tom Brady in there. We have a kid who's learning, and it would be easier for him if he could get a guy like an OBJ or someone like that who can get open. And I'm not saying that Bourne can't, but if you have the weapons, you're Bourne, Aguilar, and another guy, you know how awesome that would be?
But yeah, for example, you're right about that, because when you said Aguilar sucks, yeah, I get what you're saying, because I agree with you in some ways he does suck. But would you look at him better if he was your third best receiver as opposed to your supposed to be the deep field? Because Aguilar is a deep field threat. He does take the top off the defense. He won't catch the ball when you throw it to him, but he at least stretches the field out. But you're going to feel much better about a guy like Aguilar if he's your third best receiver. Technically, he's probably our. I think Jacoby Myers is better than Aguilar, quite honestly.
Yeah,
because you're bored. So it's just that it's weird. He's paid like our number one receiver, but he's actually our third, maybe. Probably should be like the fourth, because Henry's pretty good, but he mostly catches. I think and it's weird too, because I thought Henry was going to struggle, or Jonnu Smith was going to thrive.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting year, and I'm interested to see what they do in the draft. And they have a first round pick. Let's see what they do.
Oh, you know what they're going to do? They're either going to pick a guard, or they're going to trade back, or they're going to pick a player that you don't want. And that's the thing too. It's so mind-boggling, because when Belichick picked Kyle Duggar, this kid out of Lenore Ryan D2, it's that was the first pick at the post-Brady era. But at the same time, Kyle Duggar looks really good. The fact that Bill Belichick can acknowledge talent on this kid when he's playing against Division II stiffs like me, I'd play D2 football. It's one thing, like, it's weird the fact that like he could pick out this guy on video and be like, yeah, he's good. I want him. My second round pick, this Division II kid. But yet, like, he just passes on like every stud wide receiver. Like,
No.
I'm getting real sick of the N'Keal Harry thing too. Like, the N'Keal Harry is just, ooh.
Yeah, trade him away, get rid of him, and get something, at least something for him. My God. And then you trade away Stephon Gilmore for a fourth round. Really?
We traded around Stephon Gilmore. No, first of all, we traded Stephon Gilmore for a 6th round pick. We traded him and Sony Michel for a 4th and a 5th, or a 4th and a 6th. I'd be honest with you. I would have rather have had those two players on the team this year than those stupid mid to late effing round picks. Like, typically, like, yeah, you can find good players late in the draft, but how often does Bill do it? And he has, like, you remember when he picked Osweiler, that kicker in the 5th round? And then, like, that was like 2 years ago, like the year after Brady left. Didn't even make the team, 5th round. Like, he wasn't even the best rated kicker that was still on the board at the time Bill picked up. Like, what, like, so it's weird. Like, sometimes he goes off script, does something great when you're booing him, and other times he'll just do something that looks awful and bad, and it's like, dude, this looks like drafting a kicker in the 5th round. Jake Bailey, I understand, because Jake Bailey, there's only like 2 people in the world that could probably pump better than Jake Bailey when he's right. But like, so spending a 5th round pick on him was a one thing. Jakunikowski, when we drafted him in the 4th round, he broke like a bunch of all-time college records. So that's understandable. But Osweiler, he was like the 3rd or 4th rated kicker on the board, and there's still other guys ahead of him that were better than him, like, that were still on the board, and Belichick picks this guy. Like,
yeah, if I were Bob Kraft, I'd be like, what? I'd be like, dude, you're fucked. Again, and that's why I'm pissed off. Like, Kraft doesn't do anything. Kraft just says, like,
I think he does. To be quite honest, I think Kraft was the one that went Mac Jones, because I talked to Kevin about this, where I thought Cam Newton was garbage. I mean, when he was early in his career, he was nice, league MVP. I don't know. Last year, you saw the games. Did you not? All I saw was Cam Newton throw into people's feet, knees, and legs. And 8 touchdowns passing, like 14 interceptions. Yeah. I was like, I know the team is awful, but like, come on. Like, Cam Newton, even when the guys are open, Cam Newton's like missing like them left and right. So I think Bob Kraft is, and for Bob Kraft to go from having Tom Brady like a son to him for 20 years. Tom Brady's, and one thing we'll say about Tom Brady, like, we definitely get lucky, because Tom Brady, we were going on about how he's a different guy, he's this, he's that. Look at Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, like, he wants the highest paid contract, rightfully so. He's the Cowboys, not taking a hometown discount, publicly said it. And then when he lost, he first said, when the reporter said they're throwing stuff on the field, Dak Prescott defended himself and the teammates and said, they should give us better respect than that. Then when the reporter said, they're throwing trash at the fans, they're throwing trash at the referees, then he like said, all right, well, I understand. Yeah, they did good. And then another reporter tried to get him to walk back his comments. He still doubled down. And then all day Monday, Dak Prescott didn't say anything. He waited until when? I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday to apologize. And that was because the NBA Referee Association, because Dak Prescott actually was pretty much, I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but he was pretty much encouraging people to like attack referees, which, to be quite honest, you're an idiot for doing that. We seen Brady yell at referees on the field, but to go to the podium and to roast them, I know he was upset. You can go on about the calls, but when you're upset and you let the emotions get the best of you, you got to remember, these referees, they're like a brotherhood too. You start bashing them, next time when Dak Prescott gets hit low or gets hit high, they might not throw that flag. And that's the thing, he's still young. Like, that's why I'm saying, like, for somebody that's worth, he made $72 million this year from his sign-on bonus plus his new contract. He should be smarter than this.
Yeah,
he should. Like, and the thing, it's everybody gets the heat of the moment. We all do. Everybody gets the heat of the moment. But he could have apologized on Monday. He waited until yesterday, and it didn't really sound all that sincere, which, he's human. Referees can piss you off, but he's still going to be in the NFL for another, who knows how many years, another 5-10 years. And you got to remember, you say something bad about the referees, they'll never look at you the same again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm convinced that's why Cam Newton also gets judged differently because he's a running quarterback where he didn't get the call. And obviously, I think I think Dak Prescott put an X on his back for referees.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're still going to call flags, but now on when it's close and confrontational, because, referees don't mind getting yelled at by a player because they hear it from both sidelines. But when they hear a player in the podium condoning violence against referees, which I'm against too, because don't get me wrong, I played football and I yelled at referees. They cuss a bunch of them out, probably fall in the parking lot. But truth is, though, being a ref is a hard job. It really is, because there's about 7 of them on the.
Oh yeah, and I've seen Belichick get in there, get pissed off a lot at him.
There are some referees that suck, like the ones that watched the Cincinnati Oakland games. You see that when Joe Burrow stepped out of bounds, the whistle was blown. They still that is a botch, and that was messed up. I'm sure people outside New England hate the tuck rule, but like I said, being a referee, it is a tough job because there's 3 to 7 of them on the field. They're looking at 22 different guys. They're all bigger than them, moving at lightning speed, and not to mention while they're officiating, they're trying not to get hit. And they also don't want to be in the way. So it's really, and also too, that, not to go back to the Cowboys botch play, but they're out of the playoffs because of their play calling and because of the 11 penalties, not because of that last play where the referee was supposed to touch the ball. The referee wasn't in the way. That the Cowboys, they did their own misfortune.
Well, it's getting close to ending time because that's all the time we have for recording. But next week, Cam, we will give our Super Bowl prediction.
Well, maybe AFC and NFC predictions.
Okay,
because,
we'll do it.
It's going to be a divisional game this weekend.
All right.
Actually, do we have time to do predictions for this week, for this upcoming game?
We have a little bit. Yes, we do.
All right. How about this? What do you have for San Fran LA Rams game?
Oh, the Rams, no question.
Okay. I'm just going to go with 49ers because I think even though Garoppolo is probably going to lose it for them, but who knows? Funky things happen. How about Cincinnati versus Tennessee?
Tennessee.
I'm going with Cincinnati.
Well, actually, Tennessee, if they have their running back, and if they have their 2 wide receivers back, they're going to win.
I'm going with Cincinnati. Joe Burrow just looks like the next Peyton Manning. Kansas City and Buffalo.
Oh, that's tough. Buffalo's got a good-looking defense, but I think KC might, because they've been hot. I think KC might win that one.
Okay.
Is it in KC or Buffalo?
KC. KC, yeah.
I think KC might win that one.
Oh, and I messed up earlier. It's actually Bucks at LA.
LA. I'm gonna go LA.
I'm gonna go Bucks, even though I do think they are a little wounded, and LA is kind of playing better right now. And
I think LA too. LA has a very fast defense, and I think with OBJ they're gonna feel renewed. So I think
Green Bay. Sorry, 49ers at Green Bay.
Oh, Green Bay.
Okay. Yeah, I like Garoppolo, but
I like Aaron Rodgers. I'm a big Aaron Rodgers fan. So.
Well, thanks, Scott. Thank you for letting me squeeze those in. I know we kind of went on over our usual time.
No, that's fine. Next week we'll do another recap, and we'll try to pinpoint AFC and NFC, and then we'll go for our fans listening. We will go right through the Super Bowl, and perhaps longer if there's football talk to talk about. But in the meantime, that's another episode of the Scary Creepotastic podcast. I am your host, Scott Campbell, alongside Cameron Wilson. Take care, and God bless.
Hey, have a good week.
Yeah, you too, man.
Thank you.